You're listening to The Seed to Success, a podcast presented by Testimonial Tree, where we help grow your business through happy clients. Experts and influencers reveal how to shape your business with your customer's voice, one powerful story at a time.
Today we have Andrea Waltz with us. Andrea is passionate about helping people overcome the fear of the word no and feelings of failure and rejection that go along with it. Her best-selling book is Go for No, and it has 300,000 copies sold and has been on the top 20 of Amazon's sales books for the last 5 years. And I've read the book, and it's amazing, and it changed my life. So I reached out to Andrea on Twitter many times and finally got her here. So hooray! How are you?
I'm doing great, Brian. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no, thanks for being here. We're super excited. So I'm just kind of going to go through some questions with you, but it's very casual, and I just want to hear everything from you, and I just want to be a big sponge. So why don't you take us back through the beginning, share your business journey with us, and how you got where you are, and kind of your dream of how you got to where you are.
Well, what's interesting for me is that I never thought that I would be an entrepreneur. I actually got a degree in criminal justice, and in those days, that was before the TV show CSI. No one even knew what that meant, but I really wanted to be a crime scene investigator. I wanted to catch the bad guys. And after graduating, while I was in school, I was also working for LensCrafters. And simultaneously to going to school for them, I was getting into, I worked in the retail stores, but I also did a lot of training. And that's where I actually met my now husband. And he told me, he said, they actually hire people here at LensCrafters, bring them in from the outside, pay them 10 times more than we're making to do training and speaking. And he basically convinced me that we should quit our jobs and go launch our own company. And I was young and I had no direction really. And I said, yeah, that sounds cool. And I thought he was a fantastic speaker and trainer. So the plan was that I was going to do all the marketing and he was going to do the speaking. And that's exactly what we did. We quit. I bought a fax machine. I went to the newspaper and set up our DBA, and we were in business, and I had no idea what I was doing. It was a lot of fun, though. It was a lot of fun.
That's
and
awesome.
I've learned a tremendous amount over the last 17 years. That was about 17 years ago.
Cool. So basically, so from criminal justice to this, this was just something that you just jumped into. You didn't have any dreams about it, and then once you got into it, you started loving it, or you're just, I guess I'm here, so.
Yeah, here's what a little nuance and why I was excited about starting the business is Richard shared with me the Go for No story, which is kind of the foundation of what we do today. Mm-hmm. And I fell in love with the message of really not letting no stop you. And when he told me what Go for No was and told me about it, in fact, he didn't even use those words. He told me the story that's kind of the foundation. And I said, that is so genius. I need this message. This message is so amazing. People need to be hearing this, blah, blah, blah. And so when he shared that with me and I had the idea that we could actually go out there and spread the word about it, that's really what excited me. So I was excited about the message, even though I didn't know what I was doing.
I love it. You're just inspired by the message, really, and it just took you to all new levels. Really quick, though, I read in your bio, so take me back. At age 8, you called George Lucas to see if you could be in one of his movies.
I did actually. I had a dream. Speaking of dreams, and that is the funny thing is I didn't have a dream about being an entrepreneur or being a business owner, but I always had a dream to be in Hollywood. I wanted to produce movies. I saw Star Wars, and I don't know why, but as a young girl, I loved it. I mean, I thought it was the coolest movie. I watched it over and over and over. So I had this idea that I would be a great business partner for him. I would come up with movie titles and stories, and we would be a great team. So one day, somehow out of the blue, some family friend was over and mentioned that he happened to have the direct line to George Lucas's office. And I said, oh my gosh, I got to have the number.
Yeah.
This is my chance, right? So I get the number. The next day, I guess I don't remember it too well, but I called the office, and the secretary never got to George Lucas, and she was really nice, and she said, I think what's better for you at this time is just to stay in touch with George and all the projects, is to join his fan club. I'm not putting you through to him. So I said, oh, okay. Well, thanks anyway. And I hung up the phone, and it was only Brian about a year ago. I was talking to my mom about this, and we were laughing about the story. And she says, Andrea, do you remember what you did afterwards? And I said, no, what do you mean? And she goes, after you hung up the phone, you had an absolute screaming, crying fit. You were so upset that you didn't get through, and that, you didn't get your yes or whatever. And that's kind of the funny thing, is I really teach people to get on get off the emotional roller coaster with yes and no. And I apparently handled that rejection very poorly, which I had blocked out. I don't even remember that. So.
No, I think so you had an experience with the go for no, sort of, in a way, even when you were 8 years old. So maybe it was destiny or something.
Destiny, yes. Lots of lessons in there for sure.
That's too funny. That's awesome, though. I think that hey, at least you had the chutzpah to go out there and do it, though. I mean, that shows your character. Even at 8 years old, it seems like you've always had that just drive, who cares kind of thing, just go for it.
Yeah.
So that's cool. So why don't you go ahead and tell me a little bit about the idea behind Go for No, and then we'll kind of get into. I kind of want to talk to you about being a woman, an entrepreneur, and in business. But why don't you go ahead and tell me about Go for No a little bit, because it really did change my life. Once I read this book, I was super inspired. I loved it. I've already sent it to a million friends of mine. So hopefully you'll get more copies sold. But I am definitely sharing it a lot, and I think that it was really life-changing for me. So go ahead and give us that story.
Yeah, so the story that happened to Richard, which is kind of the launching point, is he was working for a menswear store. His sales were horrible. He was pretty sure they were going to fire him, and he was a good salesperson, but he hated to hear the word no, like most of us.
Yeah.
So anyway, the district manager comes in, a guy by the name of Harold, and Richard ends up working that day as well. A customer walks in the store first thing that morning. Rich ends up taking care of this guy, and the guy basically says he wants to buy an entire wardrobe of clothing. So Richard is thinking, oh, this is great. I'm going to sell this guy all this stuff. And Harold's going to think I'm a great salesperson, and I'll be able to keep my job for hopefully a couple more months. So he ends up selling this guy a suit and sport coat, and has an $1,100 sale, and rings him up and sends the guy on his way. And he's there and waiting for Harold to congratulate him, and Harold doesn't say anything. And finally they're standing together, and Harold finally throws Richard a bone. He says, that was a nice sale, kid. And he's like, yeah, $1,100, that was so great. He goes, yeah. He goes, I want to ask you a question, though. And Richard says, sure, what is it? He goes, well, out of curiosity, what did that customer say no to during that whole fabulous sale you had, right?
Yeah.
And Rich thinks about it, and he's like, wow, the guy bought a suit and a sport coat and slacks and all this stuff. And he's like, the customer didn't say no to anything. And then Harold, the district manager, says, well, then how did you know he was done? And Richard realized in that moment that he had a fear of hearing the word no. He would show the guy something, the guy would say yes, got some yeses, hit his mental spending limit, which was just over $1,000. Was like, anybody who spent over that was like, okay, they were done.
Yeah,
right? Get them out. And in that moment, he had this epiphany, and Harold said, you're a good salesman, but your fear of the word no is going to kill you. If you could just get over that, I think you could become one of the great ones. Well, so he goes home that night. He comes in the next day, and Rich decides that he's going to hear no more often. He's just going to hear no a lot more. And his sales, it took him a whole year, but he became an award-winning salesperson, got into management, got into leadership, got into training, and just would tell people about this little story. So when he shared it with me, I had an epiphany, kind of like you did with reading the book. I was like, wow, that is so simple and yet so brilliant. I need to hear no more. Right. I need to hear no more. And simultaneously, Brian, I had read a book a couple years before this which just, for some reason, it was like one of the only personal development books I'd ever purchased. But when I was in college, it was called The Aladdin Factor. And it was I think the subtitle is something like, how to get anything you want. How to ask for and get anything you want. And it was a Jack Canfield and Mark Victor Hansen book. And fundamentally, it's not go for no, and yet it is go for no. It's all about asking. Mm-hmm. It's all about how to ask and when to ask and who to ask and what to ask. But it fundamentally is all about asking. And the funny thing is, and maybe this, for me, maybe it was a female thing, but it never occurred to me. Like, oh, you want something and you just ask for it?
Right.
I think I had the mindset of you just sit back and you hope that you get, not that you go out and you ask. So despite the fact that I called George Lucas, which I guess in those days I had, as kids, I think we have that tenacity, right?
Right.
But, so when Richard shared this Go for No story with me, we included it, that little part in a little book that we wrote for the retail industry. That's where we launched our business. And that book was really successful in that industry. We probably sold like 25,000 copies. We became speakers and trainers in that industry. And then we decided to write Go for No. And Go for No was, okay, let's take this little idea of not stopping when you hear no. And what we used to say, our tagline, which would kind of freak people out, was go out and intentionally increase your failure rate. Intentionally increase the number of times that you hear the word no on a daily basis in your business, whatever it is, and you will be more successful. We applied it to our speaking and training business, and we've seen people in every business and industry apply this successfully, whether it's fundraising or anything else. It's just about not fearing that word no.
Yeah, no, I think that's so powerful. And you mentioned something, and maybe you don't know the answer. Maybe this is a lot deeper than I thought. But why do you think, because I used to be the same way. I used to ask for everything. But as I got older, and then I got into the insurance business, and I was in there for about 5 years, and I did not do well. And so why does that fear of no creep in, do you think? Do you think we feel that we're bothering people? Do you think that, why do you think that happens?
I think there's a variety of reasons. And we made a documentary movie on this, and we interviewed 58 people. We asked everybody, why do you think we all, in general, fear the word no? And it's rare. Every now and then I have somebody come up to me after a speaking engagement, and the person says, I have no fear of the word no, none whatsoever, never have feared it. And I always say, well, you're like the 2% of the population, because everybody has it.
I still don't believe that, though.
I know, right? Yeah. And so they're the one person who doesn't need what we have. But I think it's just a thing where as kids we embrace failure. We're used to constantly making mistakes as we learn, just constant failure and rejection. I remember listening to this kid with his mom. I was shopping in the store, and he said, Mom, can I have a second one of this? Can I have a second one of this? And then he goes, you're probably just going to tell me no. And then she goes, no, you can have a second one. Kids are just so used to that constant, asking. And then as we get into adults, I think there's a few things that happen. One, we just learn to not necessarily be spoiled brats. We know we can't get everything we want. We've kind of stopped. We tone it down a bit. I think also, though, we become, for me anyway, more, hey, I want to please people. I want people to like me. I don't want people to think I'm pushy. I don't want to be one of those aggressive, sleazy salespeople. So instead of being assertive, we go the opposite way. And it's like, I'm going to be friendly. This person's going to love me. We're going to have great conversations, but I'm never going to close the sale.
Oh, I can't tell, Andrea, seriously, that's my life in the insurance business. I spent so many coffees and lunches and dinners and cocktail parties and everything. Never couldn't close for a damn thing. It was horrible. It's
tough. It's tough, and it's a mindset shift. And what I've learned over the years, Brian, and sometimes you just have to find your passion and you have to find your niche. And sometimes, whether somebody's in love with insurance or not, sometimes people just they say, hey, I know this is the right thing for this person, and I'm going to pursue this,
Right.
and I'm gonna follow up with this person. I'm going to stick with it until they finally say yes, because they believe in it, or even if they don't believe in it, they believe it's right for them.
Right.
So if you can tap into that mission, but if there's no passion there, then you got to move on and try something else.
I think that's like some of the best advice I've heard in a long time, and I kind of believe in that. But my dad is like that because he owned the insurance company, but he does really well. But he's so passionate, everything he does. I mean, he just fully believes, I know if this person doesn't wake up tomorrow, at least their families can continue on. And maybe I didn't see any deaths or anything that maybe got me in that way, but now when I'm doing this and doing these interviews and life coaching and things, it's a lot different. And I'm definitely, after I read your book, I was like, I'm just going to ask anybody and everybody to do interviews with me, and if they say no, I'm just whatever. Like, I'll find them on Twitter, I'll find them on Facebook. I'm going to ask and see what happens. I mean, so I think you're right. I think passion plays a big part into that. Asking those kind of questions, but that's really cool. So now I kind of want to go into some of the I think a big thing for us, and one of our initiatives is female entrepreneurs and female business, females in business, and it's such a interesting topic to me because I interviewed another woman who said sometimes she feels that it's just such a male-dominated world, and it's tough out there. And you're in a really tough because you're in sales, and I just want to hear. So, what have you seen as some of your biggest challenges as a female entrepreneur?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think they always talk about the quote boys club, right? The boys club, the guys' camaraderie together, and when you bring in a female, it ruins that mix and it ruins that boys' club. And so what's I think most frustrating is that it isn't just that it's all of a sudden an influx of women, and you've got instead of 6 men at the table, you've got 3 women and 3 men. Really, it's still 5 men and 1 woman. Mm-hmm. So there's that feeling of still kind of, I think, isolation. And what I've seen, though, the good thing is over the last few years is women having a girls' club mentality and really coming together and saying, hey, we have to at least become confident and empowered to be that 6th person, to be that one female among the 6 men, so that eventually it can be 2 and 4, and eventually we can get it to 3 and 3. I don't think any of us women are looking to dominate and take over the world, but it would be nice to be equal. And I sometimes I think I see things online that even with entrepreneurs, like plays on words, like instead of entrepreneur, it's womanpreneur or something like that. And I'm a little torn up on that, honestly, Brian. I don't feel like I need some kind of special label per se as a female to say, oh, I'm not an entrepreneur. I'm an entrepreneur. I happen to be a woman, and yeah. I'm very cool with that. And I don't really like some of the labels, I think, to somehow differentiate. But I think the lack of inclusion gets wearing. And I went on a website recently. And it was a online software that you can buy, and they were like, here are all these amazing internet entrepreneurs who are using this software. And it was all the little pictures, and there were about 30 people on there, and there was 1 female. And It just seems, when I think of all of the female entrepreneurs who are in the internet space, Marie Forleo and Ash Ambridge and different amazing women. Now, maybe they don't use the service,
yeah.
But I'm sure with the hundreds and thousands of people using this service, they could have picked a few more women. So that's a little frustrating, and I see that even in sales conferences, whether they're online conferences or whatever, it's still, 13 men and 1 woman. It's like almost the token, okay, we need to get a woman in here. So from that standpoint, I think it really is just, I think the challenge is to be more inclusive, and that is on women to constantly get involved and kind of break up those boys clubs and say, hey, we're here and there's a lot of us and let's include everyone. But I don't know if, doing the labels is the way to do that. I think it's about putting positive, persistent pressure on men sometimes to say, hey, and really making people aware. I wonder if the person who put together that website even, I don't think they intentionally left women out. I think it's just an awareness of, you know what, there's a ton of great internet marketing experts out there, and you guys have one female. Come on. Yeah,
right. No, that's really interesting. I think that there's some definitely some challenges there when it comes to that, because those labels can be really annoying, I feel like, because there really is no difference, I mean, we're all doing the same thing in the entrepreneur world. We're just trying to make our businesses grow and make more sales and make make lives for ourselves. So I think that definitely is interesting to hear. Do you have any mentors or anybody who's helped you along the way that may be female, maybe not be female?
Yeah, years ago when I was at Lens Crafters, and I will say this, as an entrepreneur, you definitely need to have mentors, and I have not done a great job of this myself. My husband actually has been a mentor for me only because he's 17 years older than me. So when he suggested, hey, let's quit our jobs and whatever, I was like, okay, it sounds fun. and he's taught me a lot over the years. He has actually, husband and also a mentor, because even in our business when I was young, I would tell him things and he'd say, well, how do you know that's going to happen? Are you following up on this? And I would say, well, they said that the delivery would come Wednesday at noon. I mean, that's what they said. Oh, no, Andrea, no. You just don't leave that to chance. No, you've got to control everything. You've got to make sure these things happen. And so he has really mentored me along the line of, if you want something to happen, you've got to be on it. You have to make sure it's going to happen. You have to, take responsibility for these things. And there's been so much in our business from that standpoint, from speaking standpoint. I was absolutely terrified of speaking. He has kind of pushed me out there over the years, and we can talk more about that. But so he's been actually a great mentor to me. When I was at Lens Crafters, I had a fantastic female general manager who was just amazing, who really, I think more than taught me skills, just gave me confidence. She was the type of person who just said, you are fabulous. You can do, you can be anything you want in this company, and really just put the confidence in me to keep growing and pushing and going to the next level within the company, which really allowed me to. I became one of the youngest general managers in the company's history. I don't know if it was deserved, but she certainly thought it was, and it gave me the confidence to keep going. And I think we need just cheerleaders sometimes in our mentors, and that's what she was for me.
No, I think that's so important, and I think that makes a ton of sense. So I kind of now I think that you mentioned on since my flow is sort of just going with the flow of the questions, but you did mention you speak publicly and confidence and things. So what's really helped you? What pumps you up? What gets you super excited? And how do you build that inner confidence as not only just as a woman but just as anybody? Because public speaking and having that confidence, I mean, it took me a long time. I had to go through a lot of conferences and go see a lot of coaches, and I mean, I had zero confidence for a long time, and I'll admit that. So, can you give me sort of what you do?
Yeah. Well, I will say this. When I was, I guess, 13, I did a presentation on the dangers of smoking in, I guess it was 7th or 8th grade. And after that presentation, which I will just say did not go well, I vowed that no matter what happened in my life, that I would do everything in my power not to speak in front of people, no matter what. I mean, if you had told me of any profession. You could have listed astronaut, janitor, trainer at SeaWorld, any profession you could have listed. Professional speaker, public speaker would not have been on the list because I would have said there's absolutely no way.
Yeah.
Yeah, I hated it. I was terrified. I don't like being judged. Which is always kind of in front of my mind, and it certainly was at that age. When I got into college, I took a speaking course, and because I decided to force myself, I thought I'm going to have to end up giving a presentation somewhere along the line, force myself to take it. It was fine. I survived, but I still did not like it, did not have any confidence. And it was really only, Brian, when we got into Go for No, and Richard was doing the speaking and he was doing the training for so many years. And then finally we said, okay, we really should speak together. He said, I hate traveling. I don't want to do this speaking thing anymore. And that what he actually decided was he didn't like to do it alone.
Right.
He didn't want to do it alone. And he said, well, we could make a great speaking team because a lot of our audiences actually are female. In some cases, 80% are female. So we said, let's put together a presentation and we'll go back and forth. And I was terrified. I still was terrified, but my confidence level changed in that I so believe and love the message. I could talk about Go for No and then the philosophies for hours on end because I believe in it. And I guess I believe in it because the feedback that I've gotten of people writing us or telling us this changed my life. I was super shy. I wasn't confident. I didn't know what direction I was going in. I had a guy write me from Thailand who was in school and didn't know what to do afterwards, and now has followed his dreams and is living his passion because he read Go for No and just decided that he wasn't gonna, live and not pursue what he wanted. It was just an amazing thing. So it gives me the confidence to go out there and not care anymore about what people are thinking about me, but just care about sharing the message. It sounds so cliche. I've heard that before,
Yeah.
But it is true is if you just focus on what you're trying to communicate to people and not about the art of speaking, and not saying and not saying which is my super crutch. If you could just focus on what you're trying to get across and the message, it makes things so much better.
Mm-hmm. Do you go through a lot of preparation before you're getting on stage now, or are you feeling you're just like, I love this so much that I'm getting up there?
I do prepare, but we have a presentation that we've crafted over the years, which I'm so familiar with. Mm-hmm. But I actually kind of enjoy okay, I'm going to talk 5 minutes on this topic, but I don't know exactly what I'm going to say.
Right.
Like I'm going to talk about how to get off the yes-no emotional roller coaster, but I don't know exactly how I'm going to get into that, and I don't know how I'm going to get out of that. The thing that Richard taught me, though, and he's been speaking for years and years, is he said, if you can just get your first line down, everything else can flow from that. Know your way in. So if you start with just that line, that is that line, and then you don't have to craft every single line, but you have to know how you're getting in. And then he says, and then you have to know how you're getting out. You have to know that ending, like you're a gymnast and you want to stick your ending, you have to stick your ending.
Yeah.
And for me, and you've probably heard speakers too, some speakers will end 3 or 4 times.
Yeah.
They think, they're done. And then all of a sudden it's something else. You want to stick your ending.
Yeah. No, I think that's, most people say they remember the kind of the beginning and the end, so finish strong and everything. But I think that makes a lot of sense. I think that, once you get on stage, as soon as you get that first line out or whatever it is, you're immediately like in the zone afterward. I think there's always going to be like that nerves or like butterflies right before, but I think once you like hit your stride, you're like, okay, I'm good now. I said it, man.
Exactly. I mean, I had the worst possible scenario happen. I was in front of 7,000 people and I forgot where I was. Now, I think for most people, I know, right? I think for most people, they would think that is the worst nightmare, to be up on stage and forget where you are. And the problem was, and this is where I always tell Richard, you cannot tell me anything because I will not remember it. Don't tell me to say any line because I am telling you I will not remember it. So we were talking about this whole idea of go for no, and the idea that we say, get off the yes-no emotional roller coaster. And if you think of a roller coaster as up and down, right? It's you get yeses and you're all excited, and then you get no's and you're all down and depressed. And so what happens is you're up and down, and your emotions are never stable. So the whole idea is to stabilize out your emotions. And his analogy, which is a brilliant one, but just not one that's in my head, he said it's like the straightest distance between 2 points. I messed it up. Even today I messed it up. The shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line, right? Straight line. But what we do is when you go up and down and up and down and up down, then it takes you so much longer to get to your goals. Mm-hmm. That was the point. And so I'm on stage, and he plants the seed in my head, and I'm not blaming him, but he plants the seed. He says, yeah, you could mention the shortest distance between 2 points thing. And I'm like, I'm not going to, see, there's some things that are just implanted in your mind. There's some concepts, some phrases, right? And as a speaker, I rely on what I really know in my heart and I believe. And so I can't be fed things. So he feeds me, he reminds me of this. So I'm on stage and I say something like, I'm on a track, I'm talking about this topic, and I say, and the shortest distance between, and then I'm at that moment, I'm not even sure if I've said it right. Just like I said it with you, I'm like lost. I'm not even sure. I don't even know in that moment, really, am I describing this correctly? So I stop for a second, and then I say to everyone, I just lost my place. I just totally forgot what I was talking about. I turned, and then I said, anyway, and I picked up on the point that I wanted to make in the first place. Yeah. And Brian, it was like fine. It was fine. In fact, I had some lady come up to me afterwards, and she goes, you handled that really well. The point is it's just to remember a couple things. The audience has no idea what you're going to say. If you screw up, but then you remain calm, the key is to not freak out. Everyone's on your side, and to just pick something else up. So I was able to, because I know the topic well enough, I was able to just pick up and jump right into what something else that I wanted to share. It was all fine. And I also didn't want to just start rambling and pretend like I knew what I was doing, because I didn't. In that moment, I didn't want to finish the sentence because I wasn't sure if I'd said it right. You know what I'm saying? So even, I think when you think about in speaking, even your worst nightmares are survivable. I'm proof of that.
No, I think that makes a lot of sense, because you didn't sit up there and try to BS people or anything. You were just very honest and very like, I kind of lost my spot, but boom, and then you went right back into it. And I think that when you didn't make it awkward, it didn't feel awkward. And you mentioned something about how everybody's on your side, and I always firmly believe this, but I don't think you get up in front of any audience and anybody's sitting out there going, God, I hope this person screws up so bad. I think everybody's there because they're like, I want this person to do really well, and so I think everybody's always on the side of the speaker. So I think that's an important thought when you're up there, at least that you mentioned. So, but that's really funny. So, can you give me some? Let's go into. How and why can we give ourselves, kind of going back into the book and the go for no concept here? How can we give ourselves permission to fail? Why is that? I mean, how am I able to say it's okay to get a no, or it's okay to do that? Because that's something that I think everybody fears, that a failure, or when they're starting a new business. If you're an entrepreneur, it's like it may not work out as well as I want it to, or my MVP may not be this, but it may be this, and how can I pivot? So how can I give myself permission to just chill out and say it's okay to fail? Right.
That's so tough. And when I do these Go for No, I've done some 30-day challenges, webinars, and 7-day challenges. And I tell people when I'm on there, I say, I am giving you permission to fail. I'm expecting you to fail. So I think it is harder to give ourselves permission. So that's why I'm hoping that even if you can't necessarily give yourself permission, maybe let someone else give you permission. I'm giving everyone who watches this for eternity permission.
There we go.
I want you to fail, right? So, but it is hard. And so my answer to the question seriously is you have to reparent yourself, as corny as that might sound. I think about how parents are with their children and so patient and so, oh, tie your shoe and try it again and learn how to ride a bike and all these things. And the parents aren't screaming at the kids like, I cannot believe you haven't learned to tie your shoe. You're 5, for the love of God, come on. I mean, they don't do that.
No, right.
Right? Parents are so patient with their children, and they watch them fail over and over, and then finally the kid gets it right, and then now it's the next thing that they have to learn. And yet for us as adults, we have no patience, nothing but perfectionism, no kindness really, no like, hey, if you fail, it's okay. No, it's like, no, you can't fail, and you've got to be perfect, and don't be an idiot, and don't, all of these things. And I think, how do you treat someone else so kindly, like a child or even a friend? You wouldn't do that to a friend.
Right.
And yet yourself, you have these incredibly ridiculous expectations and really things that are unkind, because that kind of pressure, at least for me, almost ensures that something's going to go wrong. I don't need you to tell me don't fail. I need you to tell me, like, just go out and have fun, and whatever happens, just like when Richard and I speak, the thing we always say to each other before we go out is, have fun.
I love it.
If you're having fun, everyone else will have fun. It's not like, oh, go out and kick butt or, rock the stage or whatever. That's ego. It's just, we want to have fun. If we're having fun, the audience will have fun. And so that kind of pressure is what you need to take off. So for permission to fail is just, it's, to me, I think it's being kind to yourself, giving yourself a gift of, hey, I don't have to be perfect. I just have to do the best I can. And, and then you see what's going to happen after that.
Yeah, no, I think that's really important. I think that makes a ton of sense. I think like you said, we put so much pressure on ourselves, and it may be because of when we were younger, or school, or all these different experiences we go through, and we see other people successful, so then we start feeling like, oh, I need this, and we just kill ourselves sometimes. And I think that if you didn't look at failure as a negative, I suppose, and just allow yourself to just do your best, and if it doesn't turn out, it's not a failure. It just didn't turn out the way you wanted to, and maybe it's for the better. I mean, you have no idea where it could go. So I think that makes a lot of sense. So sticking with the go for no stuff, and back into the women entrepreneurs, is go for no concept different for women and men, do you think?
I think that it's the fundamental strategies aren't. All the ideas and the things that we teach are not. I think men and women probably bring different things to the table with issues, probably. Having said that, though, I've done informal polls. I've asked people, what do you think? I've had guys tell me that they're just terrified of, and admit that to me. And so sometimes I think, oh, it's women have more fear, and I don't know if that's even not necessarily true. I think guys aren't allowed to show that they have fear. They're not supposed to express some of those things.
Yeah, that's right. We're
from
tough.
Society. Right. We're tough. And I think there is a stereotype, which is, and maybe it's a stereotype because it's partly true. Guys don't have some of the issues of, oh, I want everyone to like me or this and that, and they just go in and they're going to hard charge, and they're going to be persistent, and they're not going to give up, and all of these things. Right. Whereas women, they get told no, and they say, oh, okay, I got a no, I'm done, basically, and it's over for me. I got the no, and it's over. And I think again, these are stereotypes, and anecdotally, I hear stories that from both sexes, and so I don't know what's true or what's not.
Yeah.
You hear that women take take no really easily and men don't. And so I think some of it can be true because there's some basis of truth in stereotypes. That's why they're stereotypes, right?
Yeah, right. No, I totally, yeah.
Yeah. Ultimately, though, everyone, I think, across the board, in terms of what I've seen in terms of not wanting to fail and perfectionism, I haven't seen a difference.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. And you know, definitely I don't know if this, you know, since you've heard both, but I used to be totally crushed by the word no. I mean, I remember my first startup was a 30-day challenge goal setting startup. And we somebody told me that the idea was not good and everything. And I just like had a meltdown. It was really bad. I should have read Go for No before I even did anything. So, but yeah, I was definitely like, it was tough. So I agree with you. I think there is both. I think, I don't know if there is, if it's different for men and women. It's kind of like you said, if there's, the women entrepreneur thing, it almost puts that label on there, but I don't think there is, you know. I think everybody just internalizes it their own way, and everybody's different. So we're all imperfectly perfect, I suppose. So however we want to do it is good. So, so tell me, so how have you been able to? You've built a great business, and you've really connected with people, and I think that just speaking with you here and this is one of our first times really talking in person, and you seem so cool, and we've built some good rapport. How you're really good at this. Like, you just have a really calm, really great personality about you. How can you build rapport so quickly with strangers? What are some of your techniques, and how have you gotten me to feel like you're one of my best friends now?
Well, thank you, Brian. We need to talk every morning. I love this. I told these things. Well, it's funny that you'd ask that because I actually wrote a blog post about this just the other day about how to, and I think I titled it, "Do you want to meet influential people?" Because we've built our business really on what we call influence the influencers. And for us, fundamentally, it was when you want to find a user for your product or service, or in our case, actually, it was selling books, selling Go for No books. We can't go out and make friends with all 15 million salespeople that are out there running around America. Right. Where are they? Where do you find them? So it was, well, who's influencing these people? Who are the movers and shakers? Who are the vice presidents of sales? Who are the top sales podcasters? What sales magazine, Selling Power magazine. Okay, let's get into Selling Power magazine. So it was always, let's influence the influencers. When I wrote the blog post, "Do you want to meet influential people?" I was talking about basically you have to build rapport with people. And for me, it's always about being curious, and it always comes down to asking questions. When I meet someone new, I think there's a tendency to feel like you've got to impress people with facts and figures and things, but over the years, my whole thing is ask a question. There never needs to be dead silence. And in this blog post, I actually was talking about my go-to question, which is, wherever I am, have you been here before? I mean, if you're somewhere, it doesn't matter if you're at the dry cleaner. Have you been to this dry cleaner before? Or are you new here, right? These are easy questions. It's just get curious about people. And if you can get someone else talking about themselves, they will think that you are the greatest person, the greatest listener on the planet, and you'll have a great relationship with them. And next to Aladdin Factor, one of my very favorite books was How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie. Right. I read that in college too. And it's all about being other person focused, talking about them, asking questions. So my advice to people about rapport building is come up with like those one or two go-to questions, have it in your head all the time, and just ask it all the time and practice talking to people, and you get really good at it and really comfortable. So there should never be where you get introduced to someone and there should be an awkward silence. Just start asking questions. Yeah. Right?
No, I totally agree, and I think you make a really good point. A lot of people love talking about themselves, so if you can ask about them, they're totally open to just getting involved. And I think somebody once told me, I went to a conference and they said, every time you walk into a room or anywhere you go, always ask yourself, how can I add value to everybody in this room? So in whether that's just networking or talking or asking them questions, I mean, that could really help, in building rapport with people. But I think that's really important. I think having your go-to like 3 questions that can get people to open up and to feel comfortable and know that, John Maxwell always says, people always ask themselves, like, does this person care about me? Like, that's the first question they ask themselves when you're approached, can I trust this person? Does this person care about me? Can this person help me? Those are basically those 3 questions. So I think that's really important to go up and show, hey, I care about you. Are you new here?
Right.
I think that's really cool. So now that we're talking about networks and things, can you share a story on how you've leveraged your networks to grow Go for No?
Yeah, one of the things that we've done, and this is not something that is a super breakthrough idea. I think a lot of people are doing this successfully out there. But back in 2009, Richard and I decided that we wanted to make a little documentary movie. And since I didn't get into the movies the way I wanted,
yeah, right.
I was very excited about this. So we took a couple flip cameras in those days. Flip was the big camera on the market, right? We got in the car. We ended up driving 12,000 miles around the country. It took us about 44 days, I think. And we interviewed 58 people for our documentary. We ended up creating we had hours and hours of footage. We ended up getting it down to like 98 minutes of interviews and also Go for No type lessons. And so in doing that project, in going out and finding other people's expertise, and asking them questions. Fundamentally, we asked them questions that were Go for No style questions.
Yeah.
How do you handle rejection? What do you think about failure? Why are people afraid of no? How have you leveraged the word no in your life and in your business? We asked all these people these questions, and then we kind of took the answers that they were all great, but we really culled them down. So we'd hear, somebody answer the failure question for 15 seconds and someone else. Well, in building this and doing this project, we created a great product. It's a super fun product, but also we met 58 amazing people and got to talk to them. Mm-hmm. And that really is, I think, that idea of taking your expertise or your passion, kind of like what you're doing, Brian, and going out and saying, okay, I'm not going to be the guru on the mountain. I'm going to go collect all of this stuff from all these people. And in doing so, you get to meet all these people. So now
awesome.
if you ever need something from me, you call me and you say, hey, I interviewed you a year ago. Well, now I know who you are because you did the footwork, you did the research, and you made whatever you end up doing with these, right, long term, but you made great connections. So that movie was a big one. And we also did something similar. A couple years later, we wrote a book called $1 Million a Year. And we did an interview just over the phone, a conference call style interview. If you bought the book, you got access to these interviews. And we interviewed 52 top people in the direct sales and network marketing industry. Same premise. So now we have all these connections for that particular network. Mm-hmm. And it's very much a win-win. We get to learn from them. They get their expertise and knowledge out and get to help people. So I think projects like that, interesting creative projects are how we've been able to kind of build our network over the years and have people kind of know what Go for No is. I think they know Go for No more than they actually know who we are. Which is fine.
But that's great. I think that's really cool that you got to, like you said, go out and experience and meet so many people. I mean, I can't imagine the size of your network. I'm sure it's just massive. I mean, just from speaking all over the world. And I mean, I think networks get things done, especially in business. So I think that's really cool. What are you guys doing? Any new projects on any of that?
We actually are. We just finished. Well, we're doing a 3-year fictional series, which is something totally separate, non-business related, which is an insane, massive project, but that's because Richard, my husband, can never do anything small.
Love it.
I got him, originally he wanted to do 100 episodes of this particular thing that we're writing, and I got it down to 10 books, 30 episodes. So we're doing a fictional series, but we also just finished a new book called The Diamond Line, which is going to be out in a couple months.
Oh, nice.
And it's our first,
Cool.
We've got a couple business fables, and this is our first one since $1 Million a Year in 2011. So that should be out by the end of the year.
Awesome. That's so cool. It's cool that you get to work with your husband. I think that, does that come with any struggles with work-life balance sort of thing? How do you manage that?
It used to be a lot more of a struggle because we'd work all the time. Like, we would work all day, and then we'd go out to dinner, and then we would talk about the business all for dinner. And at some point, it'd be 7:00, and we'd be like, okay, at 7:00, we are not talking about the business anymore. And then one of us would go like, wait, I have just one more thing to share. 7:02, hang on, I just have to get this out because we have to remember this or whatever. So, and that was like that for years. I think we're much better now because we're not quite as crazy. We've been doing this for so long that we're not, and I maybe we've gotten lazier. That's probably what it is. We've gotten lazier and we've gotten complacent, but we're just not as crazy. When we first started our business, I mean, we were so excited. We literally would work 24 hours a day. I mean, like just completely crazy and no work-life balance. So we're much better now. And also the secret for anyone who's married, who's in a business relationship, is to learn to give up control. And it took Richard many years, but he's learned to give up a lot of things that he used to be very controlling over. And so have I. And it's so much better when you are able to just kind of set something aside and say, okay, that person's going to do this. I'm going to do my part. 1 + 1 = 11, as Mark Victor Hansen says. And so you have to learn to do that.
Yeah, no, I definitely think that's really good advice, because I think that can be so tough. It can be really tough to be in a relationship and in business, and even just any kind of business relationship. Like when I was working for my dad, it was the same thing. I agree. We couldn't turn it off. I would go over for family dinners, and I'd sit down there, and then we'd be like, oh, so yeah, we'd talk about the sale, and I'm like, oh my God, can we talk about anything else besides business? It's hard to turn it off as entrepreneurs and when you're working together, but it seems like you've found some good ways and techniques and things that help you, because the relationship is really important. So what I want to do is ask my final 2 questions here, because you've given me so much value in your time, and I'm very, very grateful, Andrea. So thank you for that. So first of all, what is something what is your daily routine like, and what's something that helps you become more successful?
My daily routine always starts with coffee. And I will say, for anyone watching this, if you want a good daily routine, and this is not something I know because I don't do it very well, so I won't claim to know it. I will just claim to recommend it. It's called The Miracle Morning by Hal Elrod. Have you heard of this, Brian?
No, I haven't.
Morning? Oh, you need to talk to Hal Elrod. It is fantastic, and he really has a creative way of setting up your day. And I should be doing it, so I will just say that. My routine is have coffee and then do whatever I kind of feel like I'm in the mood for. Again, I've probably been doing this so too long, and so I really just like to mix it up. I take my mornings, easy. I try to get a walk in if we can. We live in Florida, so you know how it is in the morning. If you're not out by 6, then it's not going to happen.
No.
Yeah. But I think you have to know what works for you and what inspires you. And I don't like being restrained. I'm not somebody who can get up, and the honest truth is, I'm not someone who can get up and do this for 5 minutes and that for 5 minutes and meditate. And I think there's some people that are, and that's why I recommend The Miracle Morning, because it is great for people who need a routine and who can benefit from that. I think I'm a little more free-spirited, and so my routine is where there is no routine. It's kind of like whatever I feel like, and that actually has worked pretty well for me over the years. The thing that has worked for me in order to be more successful is never stop learning. I listen to webinars all the time. I love listening to Gary Vaynerchuk talk about social media. I just attended it was actually something that he did, I think, a year ago. I did a webinar by Michael Hyatt about blogging. I just always am learning and always love to see what people are doing out there. I'm constantly trying to read. I love reading. My current favorite is James Altucher.
Oh,
I
yeah.
don't know if I'm pronouncing that right.
No, he's great. I just listened
amazing.
to a podcast with him the other day. He's awesome.
Yeah. So that really, to me, is the secret, is to stay motivated, to stay inspired, and to stay educated about what's going on.
I think that's awesome. I think that's great advice. I think that I love the free-spirited part of it, because I interviewed a female artist the other day, and I asked her what her routine was, and she lives in Florida too, and it was pretty funny because she almost had sort of similar. She's just like, wherever the day takes me. She's like, I saw a manatee out in the water, so I put my bathing suit on and went out and got inspired, and I was like, oh, that's really cool. So I always like to just ask that question because it's unique, and again, it's just personal to everybody, and that's what helps you become really successful. But maybe other people can learn from it or adapt some of those things. But I think that that's really cool. And this is the last one, Andrea. So I want you to, this is something that I take really personal, and something that I think is really the biggest part of this whole thing. But you've had a lot of experiences in your life, and you've learned so much, and you've become very successful. So what advice could you give to somebody from your experiences, somebody who's, it could have been in your shoes, 20 years ago, the person maybe working at Lens Crafters or something, just dying to get out, or wants to do something different, has a larger dream. Mm-hmm. What could you give some advice on?
The advice that I would give is something that I learned really early on, and I keep remembering it as my business has evolved over the years, and Richard and I together have evolved in what we want. And it's fundamentally this, is you can't have the life that you want unless you're willing to give up the life that you have. And that requires some sacrifice. And so if you have a goal or dream that you're not pursuing, you have to decide how serious you are about it and start giving up something. And if it's security, if it's, your what you believe that you should be in front of your friends and neighbors and family, not to let that hold you back. This is your life. You've only got one of them, as far as I know. And to be willing to give up some things to get the life that you really want. And it takes some sacrifice, and there's some fear, but it's worth it, because no matter what, you won't have to regret about what would have happened. I
think that is some of the best advice I've received on the show. That is awesome. Thank you so much for that. That was I could go into a whole nother set of questions in a second here on that. But no, you've given me an hour of your time, and I try to keep it as I try to keep my word on that. So I know you're busy. So thank you, Andrea. You are incredible. I wish you so much success, and to keep it going. And you're a true inspiration. So thanks for all your time. And maybe when I'm up in Orlando, I can meet your husband, and we can grab some coffee or a drink or something.
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely. That sounds great, Brian. Thank you so much.
All right. Thanks, Andrea. You take care.